This seems fitting considering last time. From cloud to air, we now venture to, well, Air Island. I don't know exactly what's super magical and musical about the idea of air, but you know what? I feel like this island is as close to realizing that idea as possible. Standing as one of, if not the most solid of the original natural islands, this island definitely has a lot of stuff for us to go over, so without further delay, let us continue like we always do, by starting with the worst monsters. Starting off this video, we got the Weirdos returning to the bottom of the barrel. Interestingly enough though, they aren't really here for the reasons we usually say for monsters. On the surface, they are really well done musically. They have a solid vocal performance, and Stu Warb alone is like the best Weirdo. So why exactly do they suck? Well, it's because of Air Island itself, and with the verses these two had to add to join the song. Air Island is a hype song. It goes from soft opening to bombastic climax with everything pointing towards that direction. It's such a tight balancing act that what you'll soon see is that everything in the bottom list is everything that contradicts that motif. The Weirdos are one of the most egregious examples of this, since their inclusion is that of two repeats of the ending phrases, which completely destroys that hype factor the song had. After a while, it just gets really super awfully repetitive. The reason they play so low though is because technically you can just end the song early and they still largely unaffect the song. So it's more of a passive butchering than an in-your-face one. Second place is sadly gotta once again go to the lovable robot Wobbox. I will admit that this isn't necessarily the worst Wobbox, but that's kind of a disingenuous compliment since it's actually the second worst, only behind Water. Obviously, it being super loud is an issue, especially in a song like this where you really don't want a monster that's super loud, especially with how early it is in the song. One thing that pushes it beyond the typical awfulness of Wobbox though is how repetitive this one is. Like they just took another island's Wobbox and slapped even more percussion in it and called it a day. Then on top of that they also made it so this one plays like 3 times in the song, and at this point I just say please stop Wobbox, I don't want any more, leave me alone please. All in all, this Wobbox is just painful to sit through, and it really grinds my gears because of it. If you like Wobbox, then you're going to hate me for this because you'll never guess who number 1 is. Yep, it's the one rung lower than Wobbox, Rare Wobbox. So, remember how earlier with the Weirdos I said that their main issue was that they ruined the song's structure and theming? Well, Rare Wobbox does that at the very beginning of the song. Like I was talking about at the start, Air Island is a super hype song, which means that it starts off on an inviting start with a huge bombastic hyper ending. You can see it through a ton of the monsters that we'll look at later. And the reason I bring this up once more is because Rare Wobbox ruins literally that entire idea. All of a sudden, the beginning of this song is this super frantic, fast, past gibberish over top of a super chillax segment. This alone would be bad enough, but this one has one thing that makes it even worse than every other Rare Wobbox in the entire game. This thing plays 4 times in a row. This thing is atrocious, the literal worst Rare Wobbox has to offer in MSM. Every other Rare Wobbox even has the common decency to at least only play once, but this is ridiculous. The thing gets so repetitive so fast that I honestly don't ever want to listen to Air Island because I'm just so absolutely tired of listening to this thing. That's pretty much it. I just don't really have any positive things to say about this one this time around. Dishonorable mentions include the following monsters. Pom-Pom is really good on this island. By Pom-Pom standards, that is. All that to say that it's just kind of obnoxiously loud, but at least it's not the worst thing ever. I do prefer this Pom-Pom over the English-speaking one, but it's still not great. Dipsters don't do that much harm on this island, but unfortunately they're still dipsters, so they're not going to be winning any awards. They get very repetitive after a while, and their opening tracks could have been cut back a bit since they take the spotlight off of others. Rebro is a great monster with a great sound, good kick, and a sick rhythm. On Ethereal and no other island. Sorry to you Rebro fans out there, trust me, we'll give this one its spotlight when we do Ethereal, but Air is just a different story. It's loud and obnoxiously in your face during the verse where there's not a bunch of loud and in your face stuff, so it kinda stands out. This really kills me because this is actually my favorite vocal performance in all of MSM, but it's also the most butchered transition I've ever seen. Yostrich. I love this thing to bits, but what the heck did BBB do to it? Why did they do Yostrich so dirty? They ruined its loop, they ruined its volume, they even ruined its placement. This is the most unforgivable downgrade in MSM. I am absolutely serious about that. It makes me furious. Air Island has a lot of things that just kind of pull it down, but like all natural islands, there's an actual song buried under all that weight. So let's take a look at the actual Air Island song and see if there's anything good in there to grab onto. Third place, we got a really shocking pick, but you'll probably want to hear me out on this one specifically. Third is Scups, which will probably raise some eyebrows, but get ready to push them back down because I'm about to tell you why. So first thing is that this monster is, as you've probably guessed, one of the most unique ideas BBB has ever done, and I cannot look past the absolute creativity behind every note. Second of all, it really fits the theme of the island, having a less rhythmic track early in the song and a super rhythmic track late in the song. Third off is that this monster does what Reedling only dreams it could do, and that's pull off a musical mess-up perfectly. The ending of its last track has it get stuck and take an extra couple beats to pull off the ground, and that makes the track so absolutely amazingly deliciously rhythmically interesting. It is the best kind of rhythm for a hype verse. It constantly switches between strong beats and syncopated beats, it has a solid drumline and ends its phrase with a super interesting conclusion. All in all, Scups is a complete package on this island, and I give it a big thumbs up. Second best is, surprisingly enough, yet another percussive monster, this time T-Rox. This thumpy theropod has a lot going for it this time around, all built inside those 4 amazing tracks. T-Rox is one of the main monsters that gives this island its hype feel, with the first track being almost a reprise of its Plant Island debut with some minor changes to fit the upbeat early part of the song nicely. Then it switches to playing strong notes on the first beat for the second track, but then switches it up near the middle to go back to the first track, which is like a bit of hype but also still carries the upbeat feel of the first part. Then it goes into playing strong hits every beat to get your body schmoovin' and your interest sparking, getting you all hyped up for the finale. Then finally it caps that all off with a doubling down of the hype rhythm, hopping on both feet to double the bass of the notes. This is such a natural way to build hype into the song, and it makes it so effortlessly hyper, which easily lands it a spot in the top 3. First place is one you all probably saw coming a mile away. It's the fan favorite Riff. Not much can be said about Riff that hasn't already been said, so I'll just repeat those already said words. This thing is a super good electric guitar to start off with, and somehow they made an electric guitar fit the early parts of the song pretty well considering the tone it's going for. That's pretty impressive on its own, and what's better is that it isn't even close to done yet. This thing has like 3 tracks, and they act very similarly to T-Rox's from earlier. Its opening track is a good upbeat guitar, one that hits you hard on all the right moments. Its second track, though, is probably what made everyone gravitate towards it, since that track is masterfully done. It's so effortless at building the hype of the song, and it just makes me happy. The way it switches from single notes to chorded notes to that complex finale where it steals melody at the absolute perfect moment just gives the song such an absolutely bombastic end only fit for Riff itself. It's kind of interesting that out of the 3 natural islands we've done so far, Riff is the only boss that even placed in the top 3, let alone number 1. At this point you can probably tell Riff is one of, if not the best monsters in MSM, at least of bosses. It just does everything so perfectly. Honorable mentions include the following monsters. Mammoth does something completely different on Air Island, and I am all for it. There's no room for bums here, so they did the unthinkable and broke free from the shackles of limiting vocal lines. Toadjammer is such a risk versus reward monster in MSM. You either get something amazing or something awful. This time you'll be glad to hear that we lean towards the side of amazing, and this Toadjammer is just that, amazing. Cybop's debut is definitely an odd one, but a welcome one. It's the most unique Cybop, which makes it hard to compare to the others, but in its own way, it definitely has a ton of charm. Not to mention that its duet with Toadjammer of all monsters is really something else. Frog is really interesting on this island since it does something that I previously chastised it for doing on another island, and that's take a melody roll. The thing that makes this one different is that it's actually interesting rhythmically, and also allows other monsters to play alongside it instead of on top of it. Quibble is pretty much everything I said about Riff, but on a piano instead. The reason we didn't put it in the top 3 is because we just have to repeat everything that's said from Riff earlier, and that's boring. Smoochel is without question the best seasonal musically. It's interesting and melodic and impacts the song. It's got it all. If it played more than once, I could probably squeeze it into the top 3, but for now I think an honorable mention's a good enough place. Well, Air Island is definitely interesting to say the least. It is a clear motif and direction of composition, and in its original incarnation, it was one of, if not the best songs in MSM. In its current state, however, it's just okay. It's not a bad song by any means, and I'm more than willing to take the good with the bad so I can enjoy something worth listening to. This is more so just a case of, I wish it didn't have to be this way. This is a solid 6 out of 10 song, and that's a passing grade by school standards, so it's a solid pass for me. Next time, I'll be blocking Earth Island once more because the Weirdos are really new and I still need to formulate my full opinions on them, so vote for something else. The last couple of times I said I was going to predict what you all would vote for, and unfortunately I was wrong both times. But let's see if third time's the charm. I'm going to hard read you guys and I bet you're all going to vote for Celestial Island next. Either way, I'm done with Air Island, so I'll see you all in the next video. Like I said earlier, Air Island is a solid 6 out of 10 island, which puts it slightly above gold. There's not a lot to say about Air Island that's already been said. It's a great, amazing song that was just bogged down by the later additions that was added. Yeah, unlike Plant, it was still a really solid song with the additions, so it's still A. Probably better than a lot of people expected considering the natural island's history in YSM, but Air Island's a special case. It's a really special island, and it's good.